Imagine flying peacefully at 24,000 feet, and suddenly, a large portion of the aircraft fuselage rips off above your head, exposing all crew members, you, and your fellow passengers to the blue sky above. The entire cabin depressurizes instantly. The noise is deafening, and you're fighting for your life. This was the reality for the passengers of Aloha Airlines Flight 243, who survived to tell the tale of the most dramatic mid-air failure in modern aviation history. Today, we're going to take a look at one of the most harrowing aviation incidents on record, Aloha Airlines Flight 243. This flight was scheduled from Hilo International Airport to Honolulu in the Hawaiian Islands. The flight time was blocked at a brief 50 minutes, until disaster struck immediately, leaving everyone on board in disbelief and fighting for their lives. This is a story of bravery, survival, and what can happen when things go wrong in the sky. So, if you're ready, let's get started. April 28, 1988. Aloha Airlines Flight 243 was a routine flight from Hilo to Honolulu, Hawaii. However, little did anyone know that this flight would become one of the most dramatic and unforgettable aviation incidents in history. The aircraft involved in this incident was a Boeing 737-200. This aircraft was the 152nd Boeing 737 built at the RENTON factory, and it was quite a beauty back in its day. It was delivered to Aloha Airlines in 1969 and was given the name Queen Liliuokalani, a fitting name for the Queen of the Skies. But this airplane wasn't just any ordinary aircraft. It had been around the block a few times. With over 35,000 flight hours and nearly 90,000 takeoffs and landings under its belt, it had seen some action. That's more than twice the number of cycles for which it was designed, making it one of the highest flight cycle 737s in the world at the time. Now you might be wondering, who was flying this airplane? Well, there was Captain Robert Bob Schornstheimer at the helm. He was a seasoned pilot with over 8,500 flight hours. And co-piloting beside him was First Officer Madeline Mimi Tompkins with over 8,000 flight hours. The working crew included 3 seasoned flight attendants and 89 passengers on the manifest. 24,000 feet. A massive explosive decompression. Within seconds, the aircraft roof rips off. Next, the cockpit door is broken away from the aircraft. There is now a massive, gaping 18-foot hole in the ceiling above first class. A huge portion of the fuselage has just ripped off. This immediate threat is exposing the passengers to the elements of high altitude, negative temperatures, and possibly hypoxia. The entire cabin is immediately depressurized, resulting in no sufficient oxygen for anyone on board to breathe. Oxygen masks deploy from the remaining overhead compartments. Gale force winds and ear-piercing noise filled the cabin. Despite the catastrophic event, the pilots managed to keep the aircraft flying, and the working crew quickly began preparing for an emergency landing. The passengers on board Flight 243 were horrified as they looked out of the massive hole and saw the visible blue sky. Suitcases, carry-ons, and debris continued to be sucked out of the aircraft and thrown into the ocean below. During the blast, screams are heard coming from Clarabelle CB Lansing, a 58-year-old flight attendant with 37 years of experience. Her body is sucked out of the aircraft and would never be recovered by search and rescue. A passenger recalls seeing the flight attendant's feet as she was swept out of the airplane. The only equipment keeping everyone on board and safe is the seatbelt harness around their waists. Despite the chaos, the flight crew managed to keep the passengers safe and calm. While they prepared for an emergency landing, instructions were given to passengers to put on their life vests. The captain declared an emergency and diverted the aircraft to Maui, a nearby island at Kahului Airport. The surviving flight attendants deployed the evacuation slides upon landing onto the tarmac and began evacuating all the passengers. In total, 65 passengers had been hurt, with some sustaining serious injuries. The small airport was not ready to handle this type of disaster and did not have enough ambulances on property to transport the working crew and passengers to a local hospital. The aircraft was met by emergency responders, ambulances that were available, and unexpectedly, tour vans. Without a sufficient number of ambulances standing by, Air Traffic Control radioed Akamai Tours and asked for their immediate assistance. The company didn't hesitate for a second and sent as many of their 15-passenger vans as they could spare to the airport, which was just a short 3 miles away. In fact, 2 of the drivers were former paramedics who set up a triage on the runway to help the injured. However, the crippled aircraft was unfortunately beyond repair and had to be dismantled on the scene. The damage was extensive, with dented horizontal stabilizers, a slightly damaged vertical stabilizer, and some serious damage to the wings and engine cowlings. But here's the real twist. The piece of the fuselage that got blown off was never recovered. In the aftermath, there arose serious questions regarding the construction of the aircraft and how metal fatigue could be prevented in the future. All 737s constructed after line number 291 had modifications, an extra layer of skin or a doubler sheet at the lap joint of the fuselage. Now, starting with production, this doubler sheet added a thickness of 0.91 millimeters. Boeing used a cold bonding process with fasteners to maintain the joint and transfer loads. This process was done with a special cloth that was stored in dry ice temperatures. The best part of this engineering was it saved weight and reduced manufacturing costs. The goal was to transfer fuselage hoop loads through the bonded joint instead of the rivets, allowing the use of lighter skin panels without sacrificing metal fatigue life. The investigation by the U.S. National Transportation Safety Board concluded the maintenance problems were deficient. Metal fatigue and crevice corrosion were the main culprits. The incident prompted a major overhaul of the inspection and maintenance procedures for aging aircraft. The FAA and NTSB launched an investigation into the incident, which revealed that the cause of the fuselage rupture was due to metal fatigue, a type of corrosion that causes the metal to become brittle and crack. The metal fatigue was caused by repeated cycles of pressurization and depressurization, as well as exposure to the harsh Hawaiian climate. The incident was a major wake-up call for the aviation industry, and it led to a major overhaul of aircraft inspection and maintenance procedures. The airline took steps to improve maintenance and inspection procedures to prevent similar incidents from occurring in the future. This incident also led to improvements in aircraft design, with a focus on reducing the potential for metal fatigue and ensuring the safety of passengers and crew. After more than 6 decades of providing exceptional air travel, Aloha Airlines ceased operations in 2008, with a final fleet size of only 22 aircraft servicing 20 destinations, primarily inter-island transportation. The final fleet before the airline ceased operations was comprised of only Boeing 737s, including models of the 200, 700, and 800. Aloha Airlines Flight 243 remains a significant event in aviation history, as it brought attention to the issue of metal fatigue in older aircraft, a lesson that still carries on to this day.